experiences and expertise. So we hope you will have a great time engaging with our team today. We have a team of experts from the DUT as well as UJ. This masterclass has been organized in collaboration with the Division of Internationalization. So I'm going to now hand over to our team from the Division of Internationalization. I'm going to hand over to Malibongwe to do an overall brief for the program and just take us through what this session will cover. Malibongwe?
Much. Thank you, Angie. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, colleagues. Those that are within our time zone, and greetings to those who might not be within our time zone. My name is Malibonga Masango, and I'm with the Division for Internationalization at UJ. I work in a unit that is responsible for partnerships development. I'd like to welcome you all into this introductory workshop where we are discussing COIL, Collaborative Online International Learning. This session, as my colleague has stated, is being hosted by the Division for Internationalization and the Directorate for Academic Planning, Quality Promotion and Academic Staff Development at UJ. We have a team of experts, both from UJ and DUT, Durban University of Technology, to which they will take us through this topic that we're discussing today. Our program is a 2-hour program. The first item on our program will be our director, Anisa Khan. Anisa Khan, she is a director for academic services within the Division for Internationalization at UJ. She is responsible for partnership development and providing support across a wide range of internationalization activities within the University of Johannesburg, which includes joint degrees, short learning programs. She has vast experience within both basic and higher education sector and non-profit sector. She has experience in program management, and she's an educator. She has previously worked with the British Council here in South Africa, and also with University of Stellenbosch University, where she was responsible for global partnerships and internationalization. Our program is in this way, colleagues. The first item will be Anisa. She will take us through the internationalization trends. I think she will definitely cover the before and the post COVID era, because we all know that the internationalization activities have been more accelerated with the COVID pandemic that we are within, and there are emerging trends that she will take us through. The other item would be Mr. Malefo. He will take us through various examples of COIL that are emerging within UJ, that UJ has been engaged in. We'll have a question and answer session, but we'll also have, you are feel free to ask question on the chat. We'll be gladly to answer you. Then we have our lovely colleagues from DUT, Dr. Lavern Samuels. He will take us through the internationalization strategy of DUT and what is happening at DUT around this topic. He will also take us through the pedagogy and the principles of COIL. And then we'll have Divinia Jithoo that will take us through almost like a toolkit navigating around this topic that we are discussing. And then they will be able to take questions from colleagues. So we will move in that order. A bit of ground rules, colleagues. If we could all of us, mute our mics so that all the speakers, we can have a bit of order. Feel free to raise your hand or to ask questions in the chat box. will be available to answer the questions. We'll also, follow up with any other presentation that is provided here. We'll be able to send it out to all the participants who might be interested to follow up on the topic. I will then, without further ado, outline basically what will be, the overview of the session. This session is intended to support, earlier career and emerging researchers who are interested in developing international links, and also to build partnerships through virtual mobility and collaborative online international learning. I will also share some, international practice that are being done in the State University of New York on the chat, and also that is happening at the Florida University, and also what is happening in University of Washington. So I would like at this point to hand over to Anisa to take us through some of the emerging international trends within internationalization. Over to you, Anisa.
Thank you so much, Malibongwe, for that lovely introduction. And I just want to say a very warm welcome to all our speakers as well. So I tend to be a little bit disruptive in terms of order and program. So I know we have a carefully structured program, but I'd love to have Dr. Lavern Samuels, if you can switch on your camera, Divinia Jithoo, if you can switch on your camera, and Lebethe Mafelo, if you can also switch on your camera, and just so that we can introduce ourselves quickly as speakers, just to say a little warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining us today and collaborating with us on this masterclass. So welcome. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. So we will hear a lot more from Dr. Samuels and Ms. Jithoo later. So we're going to spend the first 1 hour of the program looking internally at UJ and some of our practices in terms of internationalization, and then we will move on to DUT and looking at their at what they are doing. So also to all of you as participants today, thank you so much for spending and committing your 2 hours to listening to us, sharing some of our practice. And as Malibongwe has said, I am very new to UJ. I've just started in May this year, and it would be an absolute pleasure for me to share some of my learning of UJ's approach to internationalization with you, and also just doing a little bit more in terms of the purpose of today's session. So I'm hoping at the end of these 2 hours that firstly you will have a much better understanding of UJ's approach to internationalization, that you get a chance to meet our international office team virtually. So not everyone could be here today, but our senior director, Prof. Ilva, is here, and she's going to say hello to you. Lebethe is going to be, one of my co-directors, is also going to be presenting with me today, and of course you've just met Malibongwe as well. I also hope that you'll be able to understand the functions of my unit, the one that I manage together with Malibongwe, in terms of what academic services offers to you as an early career researcher. Also to give you an overview of where you can get information on UJ's current partnerships and networks. Then together also to explore this idea of you as an academic citizen and what that means in relation to you as an internationalization practitioner. Also then, as Malibongwe said, I will look a little bit at exploring some internationalization trends, particularly under constrained mobility, as we call it. We don't like to say we can't travel anymore, just constrained physical mobility. And I'm sure now with level 1, having moved to level 1 lockdown, we're hoping that also affords us with some opportunities to start engaging a lot more as well in terms of also, some of the face-to-face engagements. I also, at the end of the session, hope that you will have a basic introduction to collaborative online international learning, or what's also called virtual collaborative learning. We might also explore some other definitions of the term. then to discuss, the community of practice that is developing at the Durban University of Technology in terms of coil practice, and Dr. Lebethe Samuels and Divinia Jithoo will give us an overview of their experience, and how they embarked on this journey, how they started on coil, and how important this has become now for their university in terms of their internationalization strategy, but also in terms of how this is benefiting their teaching and learning overall. We will also then point you in the direction of further resources to find out more about COIL, and then hopefully your internationalization questions will be answered. If not, we're still here. We're not going anywhere. You're welcome to email us or get in touch, catch us on Teams to arrange a meeting. Malibongwe is also on hand to assist and answer any of your questions. And of course, during the course of today's talk, please do put your questions in the chat box. If you can just put Q&A as you start your typing so that Malibongwe can identify the questions. And then we'd be very happy to answer these for you thereafter. So just to get us started in terms of introducing the team, if I can ask Prof. Ilva Rodney Gumede, if you're still online. I know she had some other meetings as well to get to, but if you're here, it would be lovely to have your lovely warm face and welcome and voice.
Thank you for that, Anisa. That's very kind of you. No, it's a pleasure to be able to be with you, even if just briefly before I leave. And I would like to extend the welcome that Anisa has already given to all our colleagues from DUT and from other universities in South Africa and abroad, and to all the colleagues, of course, that are with us then from the University of Johannesburg as well. It is an absolute pleasure to see that so many have joined us for this seminar today, and I think that the lineup of speakers as well as topics that will be discussed is really, really interesting. And I think that we have seen in the last couple of years, particularly due to the COVID pandemic, that our global engagements are just growing. So while some people might argue that some of the internationalization of global partnerships have been threatened by the pandemic, it's also been so that it's opened up some opportunities amongst all the tragedies that the COVID pandemic has brought with it. So I hope that I will be able to maybe join you again a little bit later, but I know that you will be in really, really good hands among the speakers today. And I wish you happy engagements, and I think that the question and answer session will be really rewarding as well. So thanks to all the colleagues and Anisa in particular. Enjoy.
Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us. And Prof is the head of the international office, but she also holds a professorship in the School of Communication. So I always wonder how she manages, to juggle both roles, because both are very, very demanding. But we're very, very pleased to have her leading our team. And then, of course, today as one of our speakers, we've got Mr. Lebethe Mafelo, who can introduce himself and his portfolio, if you don't mind, Lebethe.
Thank you, Anisa. So I'm Lebethe. I'm the Director for Study Abroad in the Division for Internationalization, the University of Johannesburg, and I'm responsible for in Study Abroad for all mobilities inbound and outbound. And since 2020, we've been working really hard with faculties on increasing our virtual mobility footprint. I'm also responsible for international student services. That includes immigration advice, accommodation support and provision, psychosocial referrals, leadership, and everything that is outside of the classroom for international students. Thanks, Anisa.
Thanks so much, Lebethe. Then, of course, there's myself and Malibongwe, who you've just met, but I will talk a little bit more about what academic services does shortly in some of the other slides. We also have supporting us Mr. Ismail Badruddin, who supports all of our marketing and communications across the division. But in particular, I think that people that you would need to reach out to and would be very important for you would be, firstly, Ms. Ntombise Mantlase, who is our Director for Fundraising and Administration. So she's a very key individual. Unfortunately, she's on leave today, so couldn't join us. But she manages a lot of our international research funding proposals, and also in terms of scholarship applications for international students. So she's really key, in terms of if you're interested, for example, at the moment, the Horizon Europe call is open and she is coordinating this for UJ. Please get in touch with her. I can share her details as well with you, but it's also available on our website. And then Mr. Shidiso Konese, who's also said he will join us a little bit later, but had another meeting at this time. He's in charge of all our international student recruitment, marketing, and admissions. So when it comes to you hosting, if you are hosting an international student in your faculty, you have any questions regarding, admission of that student, recruitment, enrollment, he's your go-to person also in terms of support for full degree students. And as Lebethe said, he's your person for any kind of a non-degree mobility, including now we work together on the virtual exchanges and virtual mobility programs. Sorry, I'm just trying to get to the next slide. Hopefully it changes. So this is basically giving an overview of what each of our portfolios does, but I think that we've covered it in the introduction, so I will skip past that, and we will share the slides as well with Angie should you need any further information about this. But each of our portfolios ties in very closely with the UJ Strategy 2025, and in particular what we call the Global Excellence and Stature Strategy 4.0. And you being from UJ, I'm sure you know all about this, and the fourth IR, and particularly how we are all aligning our work to try and achieve these objectives of building capacity around 4 IR skills across Africa is really a key component of what we do. And basically, each of our portfolios is aligned with these execution pillars. So in terms of myself and in terms of smart institutional partnerships, this is an area where I work very closely with the faculties. Sorry, I think I've skipped a slide already. Where I work very closely with faculties in terms of supporting their internationalization objectives, and particularly looking at how we can help with smart institutional partnerships, in particular those that align well with our strategic objectives. Then in terms of looking at global excellence and stature, I thought that it would be very important as a beginning or as an introduction to internationalization at UJ to talk a little bit about the difference between globalization and internationalization, because you might think, okay, global excellence and stature, are we talking about globalization? And we know that globalization itself has a lot of negative connotations. So just to say that our approach at UJ is around internationalization. And if you look at some of these definitions in terms of the difference between globalization and internationalization, globalization is more competitive. It has a lot of connotations around capitalism and, for example, trying to pursue international student recruitment just for the numbers. And we've seen that the huge impact this has had on universities worldwide, who've really been negatively impacted by an internationalization strategy that has relied very heavily on international student recruitment, especially as these markets are now shifting. For example, a lot of countries relied very heavily on getting students from China, and this is not our approach. So internationalization for us is very much around collaboration, working together on mutually beneficial partnerships, looking at ways to leverage our expertise, for example, in the fourth IR, and finding partners that can match this with us and to take that forward. So I'd like to say that our approach is one that really supports decolonization, social justice, equity, intercultural understanding, and the advancement of research which addresses the global grand challenges and the sustainable development goals. And the reason I'm mentioning this now is because you'll see the link with COIL later on when Dr. Lavern Samuels talks about the importance of COIL to internationalization, is that it is an approach that really is trying to emphasize those that kind of strategy to internationalization, ones that are for the global good and for the good of humanity. So in terms of academic services where I sit, sorry, I've got two computers here where I've got one with my notes, so I keep looking sideways, pretend to not see me do that. Basically academic services is I skipped ahead again, is involved with 5 key areas. So basically, Malibongwe and I are your go-to people for anything to do with academic services. We help to coordinate institutionally held partnerships and key relationships with international stakeholders. And we also understand, for example, I've put on support partnership development and not saying that we do partnership development, because partnership development does not happen in one place. It happens throughout the university, and it really does rely on academics for it to be successful. So I say that we support partnership development because we work with the faculties, with academics to look at what your priorities are, who your partners are, where your relationships are, and then to help to guide you around this and to guide you, for example, if you decide that you want to formalize those partnerships. Then we're also responsible for managing some targets for UJ. So we track across the university all of our Pan-African partnerships. We also track our collaborative programs. And not just track collaborative programs, we also are involved in supporting the development of collaborative programs. And these can be joint degrees, formalized joint degrees as defined by our own policy on joint degrees and master's programs, but also the national policy on joint degrees and and internationalization in higher education. And then other collaborative programs like short learning programs and other programs that can be delivered in partnership with an international partner. And here is also again where COIL comes in, because it can be a collaborative program that is delivered together with an international partner. We're also responsible for partnership development and information management. So if you need any information on what partnerships we hold, Malibongwe and I manage the database of that, and we're trying to also improve our systems in terms of having more accurate information. But lastly and not least, what we're doing today, we provide support to academics around, professional development, like, helping you in your journey in starting with your international partnerships, but also your COIL partnerships. Just to mention to you that we have an intranet site that you can access, which gives you an overview of the partnerships which we hold. It is available on the UJ intranet site, so you can navigate to the UJ intranet site where you find all your other information. It's your landing page on Internet Explorer as well. And you click on the quick link section, which you can find on the left-hand side of the screen, and you navigate to the part that says International Partnerships. You click on there, and it will take you to our SharePoint site. Sorry, somebody's mic needs to be muted. Malibongwe, can you just check for me and just mute their mic if somebody's got the mic unmuted? And then on the SharePoint site, you will find a section that says Documents, and if you click on that, you will be able to access our agreements list. So that is where you can find more information yourself. But then, of course, if you want to drill down and find further information about this, you should please contact Malibongwe or myself. Also, if you want a quick visual representation of the partnerships that we hold, you can go to the website. So the main website landing page, internationalization page, hosts an interactive map which you can click on, and it will tell you a little bit about what kind of agreement we hold with those partners internationally. I will skip through this, but just to mention, most importantly, that we are a member of Universitas 21. So if you are not aware of this membership and what it involves, please get in touch with us as well. We would like academics to be as engaged as possible and to use this network to access further partnership opportunities. So here I will take a little segue into the next part of the presentation, which is to talk about a little bit about academic citizenship, and you as an academic citizen, and particularly you as an internationalization practitioner. And it's quite a mouthful to say internationalization, but internationalization, as I've said, is not something that resides only within the international office. We are all, each and every one of us at UJ and at DUT, every single staff member, whether you are a admin staff member or a professional staff support member, as we call ourselves, or whether you're an academic or researcher or research fellow, you are an internationalization practitioner in some way. We cannot achieve the GES 4.0 strategy alone. It's a shared goal. Each of us plays our part in it. And in particular, in terms of academic citizenship, this is an idea that I've actually picked up from Professor Abajide Adebijola. I hope I'm pronouncing his name properly. He did a presentation just a few days ago for the new generation of academics at UJ. And it was an excellent presentation. It's available on YouTube as well if you're interested in viewing it. But he was basically giving, people, early career researchers and particularly academics who've been posted in these positions, some guidelines in terms of how to navigate being an academic. And he talked about being an academic citizen. And he described, 4 key areas which are also aligned with your ability to be promoted, in terms of if you see yourself, your career trajectory at UJ as one where you want to, proceed from being a lecturer to senior lecturer to associate professor or professor. What does this mean in terms of how you work and what percentage of time you spend on developing your research, your teaching, your internal academic citizenship, and your external academic citizenship. And he talks about 4 models. He talks about the balanced academic who spends 4 parts of their time on research, 4 parts on teaching, 1 part on internal academic citizenship, and 1 part on external academic citizenship. And then he talks about the impactful teacher. And the impactful teacher being one who then shifts where there's a little bit more emphasis on the teaching and learning. Then you have the impactful researcher who maybe spends more time on the research. But then you get the balanced, socially impactful academic who spends a greater proportion of time also on internal academic citizenship and external academic citizenship. And as I said, he links this also to promotions and how you see yourself. And, he talks about, at a lecturer level, you help your department. At a senior lecturer level, you want to stand out in your faculty. At associate professor, you want to be known in your university. And at professor level, you need, to be an engaged researcher where your research benefits society more broadly and are involved in engaged scholarship. Sorry, I just want to check if, again, I think just please, if you could check your mics that you are muted. Because we do pick up, if you are unmuted, we can pick up some of background noise. So taking this idea forward, I also wanted to expand this idea of academic citizenship to include your role as an internationalization practitioner. And this graphic is from the University of Alberta in Canada, where they define academic citizenship and what this means. It's a very transparent and clear framework, and I think this is just wonderful. It's a model that I would love to see us also develop or co-develop at UJ, where we can include internationalization under academic citizenship. And what I really like about this, this sort of outline of what it means to be an academic citizen, is the inclusion of key outputs and outcomes which relate very strongly to internationalization outcomes too. So, for example, concepts of academic freedom, of students being able to move freely across the globe, of scholarship which does not have any bounds or boundaries. Then also in terms of intercultural communication, this is a key output of COIL, of Collaborative Online International Learning, is the development of intercultural understanding and skills. Also, equity, diversity, and inclusivity, because when you have an internationalized classroom, this is definitely one of the key components of that. So I think that if you think of yourself as in your role at UJ or wherever you may teach, in terms of your career path, and you think of yourself not just in terms of a global citizen, but as an academic citizen, this would be a wonderful way for you to develop your own personal profile and your identity as an academic at UJ. I also wanted to link academic citizenship with partnerships for the goals, so the SDGs. And as we know, most of the universities are moving towards this as part of their internationalization strategies to really track impact in terms of how our activities, our research, our teaching and learning aligns with addressing the Sustainable Development Goals. And here is an area where UJ is performing extremely well. For those of you who do not know, that UJ placed first in South Africa for the Times Higher Education Impact Rankings and did very well globally as well. So for example, for SDG 1 on no poverty, UJ ranked 8th globally. And likewise did very well in a number of key areas, and these are definitely areas where we should continue to strengthen our impact. So looking at internationalization trends, and I'm going to have to stop myself very soon because I tend to be very long-winded, so please, my apologies, but I'm already running out of time for my slot. I will give Lebethe a chance to speak soon, and then if there's still time remaining, I will come back to some of these slides. But basically to say that, in terms of the trends that we're seeing, there's been a definite shift in practice. And even if we look at UJ and the structure of how we report on internationalization activities, it has really been very focused on internationalized research. And with the constraints on mobility, we're finding a shift taking place, that there's a lot more international partnerships, for example, that are shifting towards teaching and learning partnerships. So we find, for example, at the moment there's a lot of discussion about not just at UJ but at UCT and in other places the concept of the unbundled university. So looking at micro credentialing and how to sort of unbundle the university, but also in terms of the opportunity that this the online and hybrid environment provides for collaborative online international learning and virtual collaborative learning partnerships, and how to work through networks for more sustainable partnerships, like I mentioned, the Universitas 21. So definitely, a shift taking place. We see these trends. We see also, I didn't have a chance to put all of it here today, but perhaps if we have a second session, and there was an intention to have two of these masterclasses, this one being very introductory and being for those of you who are at the beginning stages of your journey in terms of internationalization, to do this as a starter, but perhaps we can explore this a little bit more in terms of what this would mean for our students in particular. I will skip through this slide, but basically the key area here that I wanted us to think about was this third quadrant about graduateness and in the type of graduates and graduate attributes that we want our university students and especially when they exit, through the course of their time at our universities, what kind of attributes and skills do we need them to have? And this really ties in very strongly with the fourth IR focus at UJ. And when we think about the fourth IR focus, we think about big data and data skills, but there are a whole host of other skills which are, we sometimes call them soft skills, but they are actually, research is pointing to the fact that, for example, from the Future of Jobs report, that it's actually the other skills which are becoming much, much more important. For example, emotional intelligence. the ability to work in teams, analytical thinking and innovation, active learning, critical thinking. Things that were regarded as very soft skills are actually critically important for our future that we envision for ourselves, and in particular, it is really relevant for the type of skills that are developed through collaborative online international learning. So these skills in terms of the workplace of the future, I've been identified, for example, the ability to work in decentralized international groups based on collaborative information and communication technology. That is exactly what COIL is. So, do we have these skills even ourselves as myself as an older staff member? I won't give away my absolute age, but I'm, getting on in years. I can't apply for any of those scholarships anymore. I'm beyond that age group. But, are we able to work in this way? Because these are the kinds of skills that will be needed in the future workplace, and the kind of skills that are going to be needed for our students to be employable. And certainly, if we are committed to this, we need to think about our approach to teaching and learning, and whether this also incorporates these kinds of skills. Even being able to use social media, for example, to connect people, or to use other forms of digital connectivity to connect with people. So virtual communication, collaboration skills, all of these are really becoming important as we navigate into the future. I had a few slides. I said I'm going to stop. I'm going to have to curtail it, otherwise we're going to run out of time. But also at UJ and globally as well, we're finding more of a shift to what we call internationalization at home, or internationalization of the curriculum. So this is not entirely new, but it is becoming much more prevalent and much more important as we think about equity. For example, at UJ, we have a very large headcount, right? When I say that, I mean our enrollment figures are quite high comparative to many other universities, in the sense that, we have 48,000 students, I think it is, which is a huge number of students enrolled. And if we want each and every one of them to have the opportunity to be able to travel or to have an internationalized experience, they're not all going to be able to jump on an airplane. And we need to be able to provide them with opportunities here at home to be able to get the benefit and the value of those skills. And many of those skills can be achieved through virtual collaboration. So collaborative online international learning and virtual collaborative learning are terms that are used interchangeably, and basically gives students an ability to combine working online on joint assignments with their peers at a partner university, and able to then develop all kinds of competencies through this experience. And it's also, for the academics involved as well, certainly a learning experience. But I'm going to have to stop and let Lebethe take over. If we have time at the end, I might come back to revisiting some of these as a segue into our session on COIL. But I wanted to leave you with this parting thought, that we all have to cross borders. The ones in our heads may well prove to be the most difficult. All the best on your COIL journey, and over to Lebethe. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Anisa. I'm going to be very quick. Do Malibongo want to say something?
Sir. Thank you so much, Anisa, for that, for taking us through Internationalization Trends and what we are doing at UJ. Our next speaker is Mr. Lebethe Mafelo. He is a director of study abroad within the University of Johannesburg. He is a very seasoned and experienced professional within the international space. Prior to joining UJ, he was an acting head of international office at WITS. He has worked on various projects within WITS, the WIO project, SADC projects, and also has worked at UCT between 2001 and 2006, where he was coordinating mobility programs. At UJ, he's responsible for study abroad, as he briefly outlined when he was introducing himself, is also responsible for assisting PDRFs in terms of their, coming to UJ, and that sort of a bit of administration there is your go-to person in that area. Over to you, Mr. Mafelo.
Thank you, Malibongwe. Like I said, I'm going to be short, just give you a snapshot of internationalization, of what we're doing in mobility, and what we have done in virtual mobility, give you an idea of how we track and where we are currently, and then give you examples. But first, now this thing's not moving. Technology is failing me, and there. So we find, of course, our work is located within the university's strategy to enhance international profile, a strategy document that was developed a few years ago. And in it already, the idea was to create a self-sustaining study abroad program that covers all areas of mobility, inbound and outbound, structured and unstructured, credit bearing, non-credit bearing. I do this work with my colleague who's the manager for study abroad, Liz Duplessis, runs all the logistics of everything that I'm going to speak to you about. So that I should just give you a sense of our mobility numbers, virtual numbers that we track monthly by faculty. So we had a target of 1,500 inbound, 3,000 outbound, and we distributed those numbers through different faculties, and we track it. This is where we were at the end of August. We will update this report in this week to include all mobilities by to the end of September. And the numbers in this year includes our virtual mobilities. Just to give you a sense, from when we started this program in 2009, what the trajectory of our mobilities were. We started including virtual mobilities in 2020, and hence a jump from 580 inbound to 3,414 inbound, and in 2020, and then 1,219 outbound to 7,949. And then, of course, the numbers that we have currently. The programs that meet the elements of COIL by far that we run, I put them up here in the different elements depending on length, on activity, on academic rigor. So webinars with winter and summer schools, virtual study abroad, and then virtual classrooms. We run a series of master classes through our faculties, through our institutes, and the different departments that all collaborate with international partners to offer these. We also run centrally a World Cafe series that meets the COIL element of intercultural learning as its basis. And here we invite, it's a university-wide international conversation series that is run in collaboration mainly with the different partners, but is also attended by international partners. Our winter and summer schools, the legacy ones, the UJ Cornell Law School, summer school, which focuses on the plurality of the law, looking at social justice, on constitutionalism and African customary law, that is offered online to Cornell and UJ students, co-taught by Cornell and Faculty of Law faculty, but that the academic program is also collaboratively developed, that culminates in a classroom teaching at the University of Johannesburg, and then social engagement that then brings in the intercultural learning part of it in Limpopo. The UJ Tennessee State University program that is collaboratively run with TSU, UJ, and depending on the year, a partner in South America follows the same elements as the Cornell Law School program that I spoke about. And then we have programs that were run at UJ for UJ students that we are repurposing. Actually have already done the repurposing for them to be offered online in a collaborative way with a lot of intercultural engagements. With our partners, African Insights and Artificial Intelligence for 4IR. For the first time this year, we offered virtual semester study abroad, mainly due to COVID. A lot of challenges in setting that up, but we saw a number of students taking up semester study abroad program at UJ while they are in their home country. And of course, we then engage them with UJ students in not only the virtual classroom, but also the outside the classroom type of engagements that we do with them. And then, of course, UJ and University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign collaboratively work in architecture on a virtual studio that is run by our graduate school of architecture. One of the big things that we've been working on is virtual work placements, work that we're doing with our consortium that Anisa mentioned, Universitas 21, and an outside organization, People and Friends, who have done for us a number of very short work integrated learning type programs for our students in collaboration with other international students. And of course, there we focus on e-coaching, organizational socialization, stimulating reflection skills, and all of the elements that are required in an internship. But we do them at in a very limited and compact way. We do a number of things as well to enhance what we are currently doing in the work that we are offering. Virtual tours of our campuses and facilities to truly immerse the students that are not on campus with campus. They get to meet the staff. They get to interact with the facilities, the labs, the residences, the sports activities, in the sports ground. And we're repurposing a number of programs, like I had mentioned, the 4IR program and the artificial intelligence for 4IR, and the African Insights. And we're leveraging our partner universities, programs at our partner universities to fit into this program. An exciting program that we're also working on is our virtual orientation program that is immersive, that is engaging, that is interactive for the students that will eventually physically come to UJ and those students that will not come to UJ. Anisa, that is all in terms of what I had prepared in terms of a snapshot of what we are doing in this area.
Thank you so much, Lebethe. We really appreciate your inputs there. And of course, if anyone would like to learn more about those programs or the model that was used and how we could maybe replicate these in other with other programs or modules, please get in touch with Lebethe or myself to find out more. So on our program, we had allocated a short time now for you to do a little bit of question and answers. If you have any questions for us, if I can ask Malibongwe to just check the chat for us if there are any Q&As that came through there. But if not, can I ask you to please, if you feel comfortable, to turn on your cameras and just ask us if you have any questions, or if there's something that wasn't clear, you need a little bit more information on, or something that sparked your interest. Please shoot now, and then we will hand over to our colleagues at DUT to take us into their experience of COIL at DUT. Any questions or comments? Or? Nothing. Malibongwe, is there anything in the chat? Nothing.
There's nothing in the chat. There's nothing in the chat.
Okay, colleagues, I'm going to get worried that you're all doing your emails.
There's one hand, Anisa.
Okay.
Oh, yes,
There's one hand from Henry.
Go ahead.
Denver.
Please go ahead.
Hi everybody. I've got a quick question. I've got some MOUs that does not seem to appear on your list. And then who do I submit that to? Because I can imagine that it could have slipped through the cracks somewhere.
Fantastic. Lovely. No, thank you. We've just actually we recently even just sent a little email through to all the deans to ask for more of this information. So definitely, please get in touch. If you can send that information to Malibongwe, it is meant all partnerships that have an international element are meant to be logged by us as well, but also through corporate governance. So Malibongwe will make sure that has been done, so that if we ever pull that information. So for those of you who don't know, we have a system at UJ called Perceptive Content. And Perceptive Content is basically our information management system, where any agreement that has been formalized is logged. So if you've been the relationship manager for a particular contract, you will be regarded as the contract owner, and as the contract owner, you are mandated to send this to corporate governance. But if it is an international contract, you are also meant to flag this to us that you've sent this to corporate governance, and corporate governance then uploads it onto the system called Perceptive Content. So whenever we need to draw information on the partnerships that we hold, Malibongwe will then do a search on Perceptive Content, and one of the search items he will use is also if it has an international element to it, and then be able to pull all of that information together. So that's what we rely on to a large extent in terms of being able to know how many partners we hold. But as you just said, Denver, sometimes there are gaps, and we really rely on this kind of relationship building for you to know who we are and what we do and how we can support you. And of course, if you have any other MOUs where you require support, where you're obviously very busy also with your academic loads and your other work that you have to do, we are there to help you with that process. So in terms of drafting agreements, etc., that's also part of our role.
Okay, that's good to know, because there's just another question, maybe some word of advice. So there's at least three engagements that I'm involved in project driving. One and they have different kind of structures. So the one, for example, is literally ourselves and 3 other universities in the global south, we're doing our second talk now, and we're going to have it monthly.
Right.
And so that's considered to be kind of an online learning experience, and we invite all our students to be part of it. Now, we're still testing it out to see where this will go and what the appetite for all the 3 or 4 different universities, and hope to get another. They're kind of falling into the BRICS area, so it could be another Brazilian and Chinese institute. But that's one project, for example, and then there's another project which I have engaged you on, where there's a fabrication lab in Barcelona.
Yeah.
We sent a student now. We were going to send a student through now and another part-time lecturer, and we're busy trying to get access to that with the people I to talk to, having that.
Fab lab, yes.
Yeah, to have that. My question just is, at what point do you think one should start formalizing certain engagements, and what do you need to consider to be MOUs, for example? So if we're just having online, there's an agreement that we have an online talk every month, and each university gets a turn to present some work. Is that something that you would want to see as an MOU? Is that something that we should formalize? And then the EAC thing in Barcelona, I think that makes more sense to formalize. I just don't know what the appetite is to have engagement and support. I guess one almost needs to have a consultation with you to understand what the parts of this moving thing could be.
So I'm sure Malibongwe also probably wants to say something there, but from my perspective, I mean, this kind of communication is very important. This is why we want to be more visible across the university as the international office, but also in terms of my unit, academic services, to engage with you around, on a case-by-case basis in terms of which partnerships should be formalized and which ones can continue to exist informally, because certainly not everything and not every international partnership is going to be formalized. The ones that do become formalized are generally those where it will help and assist you in your activities to have them, drawn up as a legal document. So when I say this, for example, if you see that together with your collaborators, although maybe now you are having these online or joint seminars, perhaps you see the potential that your relationship is growing to the point where you may want to apply together for a BRICS research grant. And also through our own strategic initiatives division, there's also internal funding for BRICS partnerships. So that's also something to bear in mind. Then you would want to formalize the partnership. So, it's things like that. When it becomes something that will enable further work, where it becomes something where we also become the preferred partner. So, I mean, there are so many universities across the world and across South Africa, and obviously there is, when you have these kinds of partnerships, you want the partner when they have an opportunity to think of UJ first. Sorry, DUT, I know you're here as well, but maybe to think of UJ and DUT. But, for them to do that, it helps for them to have a partner agreement that's formalized with us, an MOU that's formalized. But that being said, we also want to see active partnerships in the sense that we don't want to have dead agreements. We just have things on paper and there's not actually, active engagement around them. So it's preferable that it needs to be a relationship where you can see that there's this continuous activity, this engagement, where you have a good relationship with that other academic or academics, where you see also the potential for the research to grow. But I think let's have another conversation offline about those. And if there are any other questions, otherwise we will move over and introduce the colleagues from DUT. I had put down some questions we could also ask ourselves, or maybe you can ask yourself offline. For example, if we look here at the second bullet, how are the competencies I mentioned relevant for future professionals? Do you see this as important in your own classrooms? What is our role in terms of educating open-minded and responsible professionals and citizens? Do you see internationalization as being important for that? What is your role as a lecturer? Sorry, this keeps changing when I keep clicking on it. What is your role as a lecturer in an international classroom? What additional competencies do you think that you might need? And, what kind of support do you need, for example? Is there something that we should be doing as an international office to support you with your objectives around an international classroom? So those are all questions you can ask yourself, but I'll stop there and ask Malibongwe to please introduce our DUT colleagues. Thank you so much for your attention so far. And sorry, I saw some people needed to leave, or one person needed to leave, but it was great having her here. Okay, I'll stop presenting. Over to you, Malibongwe.
Thank you so much, Anisa, and thank you so much to other colleagues that are here with us on this first introductory workshop in Coil. Our next expert, I think we are now getting into the crux of why we're here, is Dr. Samuels. Can I maybe get an indication if Dr. Samuels is on the line?
Yes, Malibongwe, thank you. I am on the line.
Okay, let me just briefly introduce Dr. Summers. Dr. Summers is currently Director of International Education and Partnerships within the Directorate at DUT. He's also the Senate Representative on the University Council and is the immediate past chairperson of DUT Institutional Forum. He is also serving as Vice President and Chair of Directors Forum of the International Education Association of South Africa, AISA. For those that who don't know AISA, AISA is a national organization that is responsible, or rather is pushing the internationalization agenda in South Africa. Dr. Summers has a vast experience within internationalization, having served, of course, as the president of AISA, and also is also a member of SAQA. In addition to that, he is also the current board member of the International Center on Non-Violence and the M.L. Salton Charitable Education Trust. His bio is a bit long, but I'm sure you'd want to introduce him in one or two words, introduce himself in one or two words. Let me hand over to you, Dr. Summers, and thank you for your time and your availability.
Thank you very much, Program Director. I think you've done a good job in introducing me, so I'm not going to add to that. But thank you very much, colleagues, for the invitation to present collaboratively with colleagues from UJ. It's really our pleasure to work with you, and I think partnering and collaboration is something that we espouse in our work, and it's something that I think is excellent as a tool to drive internationalization forward at our university. So doing it together, I think, is always doing it better. So the title of my presentation is about COIL, or the term that we also use, the broader term, International Virtual Engagement. And I'm going to speak about it as a case for the advancement of internationalization of the curriculum and decolonization of the curriculum. And of course, I will be doing it against the backdrop of what we've done at DUT. So let me move on to the next slide. Divinia. Thank you. Colleagues, for us, the journey towards comprehensive internationalization has been one that has been deliberate. It is one that we started some while ago, and it's one that we thought necessary. John Hudzik writes extensively about comprehensive internationalization. It can sometimes look like a pipe dream because it is not easy to do. But looking at the presentations that Anisa and Lebethe gave, I think DUT is definitely on track in terms of being a university that is comprehensively internationalized. I'm going to start with this this quote from Hans Devet on internationalization. And I'm not going to read it out in its entirety, but pick out some words. And the words in red are really what matters. The intentional process of integrating international dimensions into the purpose, function, and delivery of post-school education. And then it's the second bit that really lifts it from the old Jane Knight definition that we all worked with. And Jane Knight was one of the first people to define modern aspects of internationalization. We all know that internationalization is not new. We've had scholars over hundreds of years traveling across the globe in the pursuit of knowledge. But in its modern form, it is actually about 30 to 35 years ago when it became a field of its own. And Jane Knight was one of the first people to define it. This definition by Hans de Witt really takes it forward. And it speaks about in order to enhance the quality of education. And you would have seen that a lot of what Anisa spoke about was about the enhancement of the quality of education and research for all students and staff. And I really want to stress the all, because that is the leap forward that we have taken in comprehensive internationalization, and to make a meaningful contribution to society, because internationalization is not a means in itself. It is not a means. It's really about doing something that achieves a type of university that is a different one. So the transformational potential of internationalization is really important to be explored. It really has this potent ability to change universities and change it for the better if it is well managed. Now at DUT, we moved from what we saw as an exclusive form of internationalization to an inclusive form of internationalization. And that's one of the benefits of comprehensive internationalization. John Hudzik himself, who coined the term comprehensive internationalization, often speaks about internationalization of the curriculum being the first step into comprehensive internationalization. And so at DUT, this is the step that we took. Like at most universities, at DUT, internationalization was exclusive, it was elitist, and it was often elusive to the average academic and the average staff and the average student. It really was about the elite researcher, it was about the student who could afford mobility, or the exceptional student who would win a scholarship opportunity. At DUT now, we move to a form of internationalization that is inclusive, it is inviting, and it is embracing, and it is about leaving nobody behind. So the elements of social justice and inclusion are very much are very important aspects of our approach to internationalization. Next slide, Divinia. Now, at the recent AISA conference, we had an attempt to give a definition of internationalization a South African perspective. And this is a definition that came from Helita and Chasi at this conference. Both have actually spoken to me, and they feel that it is still work in progress. It needs reworking. But this definition is an important one in that it has underpinnings of internationalization that are really important for the African continent and South Africa in particular. And it speaks about internationalization of higher education being intentional, critical, and a comparative process, and its complexities are important in interrogating the past and present inequalities and injustices. And you can see this actually has strong resonance with the path we have taken at DUT, and I'm pretty certain at UJ and many other South African universities. And the aim is to make the world a better place for all. Internationalization must place South Africa and Africa at the center of teaching, learning, and research, and interrogate critical, anti-racist, anti-hegemonic learning about the world from diverse global perspectives in order to enhance the quality of education and create knowledge that is relevant to the functioning and progress of societies in South Africa, Africa, and the world. And I think this is very important because it brings into focus themes that come alive in COIL. Issues of social justice, issues of mutuality, issues of respect. And you will see that in the next slide that I'm going to show you about DUT, how all of this is embedded in our approach to collaborative online international learning. If we could move on to that slide, Divinia. This is Envision 2030. It's DUT's strategy on a page. I was fortunate to be part of an 8-person team that worked with the Vice Chancellor in developing this strategy on a page. It took us more than a year to develop a page. It was easier to write a copious document on strategy, but we wanted a strategy that was accessible to everybody. And this strategy, which is read from the bottom up, has 4 perspectives. We speak about the 4 S's: stewardship, systems and processes, sustainability, and society. And the first 2 perspectives are effecting and enabling. And the 2 that are on the top of the diagram are the influencing and impacting perspectives. And you can see The entire strategy is based on values and principles, and those values and principles are actually listed there. And many of those values and principles come together. They are clustered in various combinations to, define the type of projects, the type of internationalization that we practice. So, for example, if I were to take respect, that mutual respect is really important. The accountability becomes so important. The excellence in a partnership, the commitment, the professionalism. So all of this is part of our DNA. And you will see that our DNA has two strands, like a biological DNA has. One is about being people-centered and engaged. And I think that speaks to internationalization. Internationalization is really about being people-centered, and it's about being engaged. When all the credits are counted, internationalization at its heart is about a contribution to the broader human project. It's about changing the world for the better. It's about creating graduates who can actually go out into the world and be the next generation of leaders that change the world for the better. And of course, the other part of our DNA, the other strand, is about innovation and entrepreneurship. And innovation is at the heart of COIL. It really is an innovative approach to internationalization, to teaching and learning. And entrepreneurship is not just in a commercial sense. It's about having this bold entrepreneurial spirit in everything that we do. Now, in this entire page, there isn't the word internationalization once, but it is embedded across the plan. And there are 12 strategic objectives that you see there, and you see them listed on the right-hand side of this plan. And you will see internationalization embedded in each of them, our lived values, our institutional culture, and the one there on the extreme right in the corner, creativity, is so central. Because without engagement, you can never fully explore creativity, whether it's at a research level, whether it's teaching and learning, whether it's engagement. Creativity is key to taking the university to the next level. And our contribution to creativity is actually opening international borders to our academics, to our staff. So through that engagement, they can harness creativity. You'll see on the next level, we speak about an innovative curriculum and innovative research. And our contribution to that is internationalization of the curriculum in its various forms. And you've heard from Anisa some of the programs that contribute to an innovative curriculum. The digital environment, so important. When we developed this plan, it was just before COVID. We had this plan approved by council without knowing just how important the digital environment would be in 2020 and 2021. We had this plan approved at the end of 2019. The digital environment has been important in 2020 and 2021, but it is vitally important for collaborative online international learning, for COIL, for international virtual engagement. State-of-the-art infrastructure. When we developed this plan, for us, state-of-the-art infrastructure perhaps had more of a physical connotation. It was about our next research laboratory. It was about the next type of building we would put up. But we all know that now state-of-the-art infrastructure is as much about the virtual as it is about the physical. We move on to the next strategic objective, a distinctive education. And at DUT, our contribution to a distinctive education is collaborative online international learning. And of course, that concept of COIL has grown. It is now much more than the classical COIL module that we have been doing for years, starting with the State University of New York and then broadening to partnerships all around the world. And at DUT, we have the added benefit of general education. I think we're probably the only university in South Africa that uses the American concept of a liberal arts education across the faculties. So every faculty has the ability to embed general education modules into the curriculum. So even if you are doing engineering, you actually might take a course in art and drawing, which actually enhances your ability to design. So that distinctive education is quite unique at DUT, and we drive it from our office through COIL and its related activities. I'm not going to focus so much on financial sustainability and green ecosystems, but I think you all realize just how COIL contributes to that. It allows internationalization to be taken to scale with financial commitments that are far less than you would if you were actually engaging physically, and the same with the green ecosystem. And we move up to being an engaged university. And there again, internationalization and COIL is an important part of that engaged university. Yes, we are engaged in our various contexts, the local, the national and regional and international. But the international component is vitally important because it links the other contexts that we operate in. Internationalization is not just about bringing the international into the university. It's equally about creating a platform for the local in the global context. So being an engaged university is not just about the different contexts operating separately. It's about creating a link so that the engagement is a dynamic one and one that is interactive. I've spoken about innovation and innovation and entrepreneurship, but the next one is really important: adaptive graduates. I heard Anisa speak about the graduateness, graduate attributes, and having adaptive, agile graduates are so important in the world. It's about allowing our graduates to have that international perspective that makes them global or local citizens that are able to engage in different environments and adapt to these environments and contribute to them. And ultimately, everything at DUT is about, in the DUT strat plan, when it actually is read from the bottom up, it's actually about us contributing to improve lives and livelihoods. And that is not just in the South African context, it's in the global context. And this is where the SDGs are an overarching goal that we have in how we give expression to this strategy. Next slide, Divinia. So the Envision 2030, and you can see how COIL fits into it. By 2030, DUT's people will be creative, innovative, entrepreneurial, adaptive to changes in the world, and participate productively in the development of our region, country, and the world. And for us, the only way we are able to achieve this is allowing the international dimension to touch all our students and staff. We cannot achieve this if a few of our staff members actually go to international conferences and have exchange programs with a few universities, or a few of our students do this. We all know that with the Erasmus program over many years, and it's probably the best funded mobility program in the world, Europe has not been able to achieve even 20% international mobilities with its students. And Europe is a small continent. You can literally internationalize on a bicycle in one day. You can ride through 3 European countries in a day. And yet with all of that, the resources available, they've not been able to do it. So in engaging with internationalization of the curriculum, and COIL in particular, we are able to give this to our students in a way that is just, equitable, and available to all. And I think the old forms of internationalization are not to be thrown out of the window. For example, academic mobility isn't something that we stop doing because we actually engage in the type of activity that we have with COIL and international virtual engagement. And that's very important to note, that we don't stop the elite researcher presenting at the best conference in the world, but we also are inclusive in allowing the fledgling academic to be involved in internationalization well before they might be able to engage internationally on research. And I think that that model that Anisa presented on the different types of academics is really important, because COIL is not just about students, and it's not just about a pedagogy that prepares students internationally to be global citizens. It's a potent staff development tool. And all of those components of the different categories of academics that Anisa spoke about, COIL contributes significantly in developing those academics to be firmly entrenched within those categories of established academics. It's part of that trajectory in developing our academics. Next slide. So at DUT, we speak about this comprehensive, inclusive model of internationalization, and you can see our strategy is at the heart of our internationalization efforts. This strategy, together with the DUT international strategy, and I should add that the DUT international strategy actually is well aligned to the national strategy on internationalization. After many years of not having a national strategy on internationalization, a year and a half ago, we had the promulgation of the South African Internationalization Strategy Framework. So DUT has now got a strategy approved by Senate and Council that is aligned to this. And this, together with the DUT overall strategy, Envision 2030, informs our approach. And you can see we have various layers of engagement. At the heart of our internationalization efforts are our faculties and our academics and our international partners and our students. And then we don't leave it at that. We take it to the next level of working with other divisions like the HR division, our Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching, our Student Recruitment and Admissions division, which at DUT is separate from the international office, but I understand that UJ is part of the office. Our Center for Quality Promotion and Assurance, because the contribution that internationalization makes to quality is really important. And then it's about working with the registrar and admin divisions, because much of what we do needs academic rules that speak to our activities. And the next layer talks about government, working with national, local, and provincial government, working with professional boards, working with professional networks, and it goes further out, and it talks about working with industry, working with the diplomatic corps. So our internationalization is embedded in engagement with what we call the quad helix, working with university, with different levels of government, working with civil society, and working with the business world. And you can see how that model is actually held together by these types of engagement. Next slide. So the DUT International Strategic Framework is about supporting inclusivity, mutuality, and diversity. And it really is about pursuing higher education, social justice through internationalization and decolonization. And I've given an entire paper on why internationalization or decolonization calls for deeper and broader internationalization and not less internationalization. That would take me probably a full presentation, which I'm happy to do at a later stage. But decolonization through internationalization is about bringing new voices to the table. It's about engagements that we've not been involved in before. And it's about creating access to forms of knowledge that are out there that we have just we've not valued sufficiently over the years. Next slide. Divinia, next slide here. So you can see that our attempts at COIL and internationalization are really about contributing to the development of adaptive graduates. And I actually want to broaden that and say it's about creating adaptive people, because it's not just about our graduates, it's also about our staff. It's about preparing them to work in a world that is increasingly globalized. It's about preparing them to work in a world where the skill set is different. Those transversal skills are so important, and COIL plays a very important role in a DUT in getting our students towards becoming adaptive graduates that have these transversal skills before leaving the university. Next slide. Okay, and then you see here how the adaptive graduate at DUT is able to deal with what is important. And some of those are transversal skills, tolerance, mutuality, diversity, resilience is so important. And of course, having that sense of inclusivity. Our graduates are not able to work in a world with divisions. Our graduates are meant to see beyond the barriers and divisions, and inclusivity is really important. Now, all of this at DUT has played a very, very important role in pivoting the university. Not too long ago, we were a technicon that became a university of technology. And over a fairly short period of time, we've become a ranked university. We are in the Times Higher Education ranking in the top 500. And in South Africa, in the latest rankings, we are the 5th ranked South African university in this study. And you may well say, how did that happen? For me, internationalization was a central element in this. The category that we scored highest in, and it might actually be quite surprising, is the impact of our research. We actually are in the top 10 in the world in terms of our citations. And we are number 1 in South Africa in a category where you would think that a research-intensive university would actually be ranked the highest. And a lot of this is about the type of internationalization that we were able to do. Our international outlook was our 2nd highest contributor to the rankings, but that international outlook is what allowed our research to become impactful and to drive our citations. Now, I'm not saying for one moment we should be driven by the rankings, but they do tell a story, and it's important for us to unpack that story and see how we as international practitioners, as academics, can contribute to a university that is moving forward and actually achieving its mandate to its students and its staff far more effectively. Divinia, next slide. I'm going to hand over to Divinia at this point, who will take us forward and explain to us how the increased perspectives of the curriculum have taken our students forward, and how we have been able to put COIL at the center of our international activities and the contribution that COIL has made. She will also unpack a toolkit that we developed for the Association of Commonwealth Universities last year that is now available to the 600 member universities of the Association of Commonwealth Universities. Over to you, Divinia.
Thank you, Dr. Samuels, and greetings to everyone on the call today. So at DUT, international virtual engagement, such as collaborative online international learning, aims to promote internationalization and decolonization of the curriculum through increasing and enhancing international perspectives within our curriculum. Our strategic partnerships with universities in countries from the Global South facilitates these aims and objectives. Through these engagements, perspectives that may have traditionally been excluded are purposefully included through structured COIL projects embedded within our modules, as well as added extracurricular international virtual engagement activities. And these activities include global webinars and series presented by field experts from our vast partnership network. Furthermore, through international virtual engagement such as COIL, the transfer of local knowledge to the international stage is facilitated. Through international virtual knowledge exchange, our indigenous knowledge systems are given a space on the international stage. Our students and staff are able to add their voices to the global expert fields that these activities are occurring in. Less than 1% of the student population in Africa are able to participate in study abroad opportunities. The most prominent challenge is access due to lack of funds needed to facilitate such participation. At DUT, international virtual engagement, including COIL and global learning programs, have allowed for increased access to the benefits of internationalization of higher education for all DUT students. By systematically and strategically increasing opportunities for students and staff to engage internationally using the virtual space, we have been able to increase access to international experiences for DUT students. So during the period of Envision 2030, our aim is to enhance this to 100% of students having at least one COIL or international virtual engagement experience within their student career. Through the promotion of study abroad and exchange, we hope to complement and supplement our international virtual engagement efforts at DUT with physical mobility opportunities as well. So the following is a snapshot of our strategic partnerships where international virtual engagement and COIL have taken center stage. The partnerships have allowed for engagement with voices and perspectives that have traditionally been excluded and can now contribute to the internationalization and decolonization initiatives at DUT. In addition, our partnerships in the global north have strategically been developed and maintained to allow for enhanced diversity in the classroom, thereby further increasing international perspectives within our classroom, and also contribute to the internationalization and decolonization project of the decolonization of the curriculum project of our institution. The partnerships are with institutions similar in ethos and values to that of our own, allowing for further facilitation of these objectives. So to introduce you to collaborative online international learning as a concept. What is COIL? You may have heard of a COIL module or a course or a program or some other term used to describe COIL. It is not a module or a course. It is not an added extra. It is a COIL project within an already approved and accredited module that you are running. It is a way of teaching and learning and a pedagogy used to achieve certain learning outcomes within your module or your course. A COIL project is collaborative in nature. It is collaborative at the academic or faculty level as well as at the student level. Academic partners work together to develop and design the project from the conceptualization phase to the development of project activities and assessment activities, all the way through to the evaluative and reflective stages of the project. Students work together on the project activities set out. The collaborative principles that are included are teamwork and intercultural communication. COIL is virtual, meaning it's in the online space using a virtual platform such as Zoom or Microsoft Teams like we are using now. These are technologically mediated platforms used to support learning. These platforms can facilitate synchronous or asynchronous teamwork or collaboration. The platforms I've already mentioned would facilitate your asynchronous activities. Your synchronous activities, sorry. Asynchronous activities can be facilitated by platforms such as WhatsApp. Other platforms that facilitate asynchronous activities include tools such as Padlet or Trello or Slack. It is international of nature, COIL, meaning that the partners and student groups are geographically operating and located in 2 or more different countries. The team may also comprise of students across more than one discipline. The international principles include cross-cultural exchange of ideas. And there is learning exchange that occurs in COIL. COIL projects provide opportunities for innovative approaches, for example, problem or inquiry-based learning, reflection learning, writing-intensive learning, and collaborative learning. A typical COIL project usually runs between 4 to 6 weeks. You can have a shorter project, which you would call a mini COIL project. And it is a project that occurs within a module or a course as one of the teaching and learning activities used to achieve learning outcomes. Week 1 would include your icebreaker and introductions, including introduction to COIL, introduction to the project, the different activities and what is expected from students, as well as introductions between the groups. Week 2 to 5, or the weeks that form the middle weeks, would include engagement with the project and the activities that you've included and designed together with your partner. Week 6 would usually include the evaluation and the reflection activities that would inform the future iterations of your COIL project that you may run in the future, or future COIL projects that you may design and develop with your partner. So this is an exhibit of the life cycle and steps of a COIL project. Academic staff would examine the components of assignments or learning outcomes and think about how this can be enhanced by international collaboration. COIL requires out-the-box and creative thinking in terms of how students will achieve these learning outcomes within a module. With an international partner, academic staff will develop joint learning outcomes together for a collaborative project that would address components of the modules or courses on either side. And this is where you see, through this kind of teaching and learning method, the intentional mutuality and inclusivity. So for coordinators and academic staff, it's very important to ensure there's equal representation of each of the modules that the project is being implemented in on either side. It is important to ensure there's mutual agreement on both sides that are included, and that this is done in a satisfactory manner by each partner. From there, partners will together conceptualize and develop project activities for students to collaborate on. During the implementation phase, academic staff will engage and assess to see if the mutually intended learning outcomes are being met. And at the end of the project, they will reflect and evaluate to see what could have been done differently to improve on the next implementation. When embarking on COIL, it is important to be aware that you need commitment from both sides in order for projects to work. It is very important to ensure that students from either side are also aware of this. Technology is another aspect to consider because this is an online endeavor. It is important to ensure that the technology platforms to be used are mutually agreed upon. For example, if WhatsApp is used for asynchronous activities, it is important to know if this works in the country that your partner is located in. We recently experienced another example of this when one of our projects, the academic staff chose to use Google Drive and Google Docs for the asynchronous student collaboration, only for us to find out later that some of these South African students were planning to access the platform using Huawei smartphones and did not realize that their phones do not support Google. We had to then step in and ensure that these students could then access DUT laptops to participate in the COIL project. Also, similarly, for asynchronous activities, it's important to be aware of these issues when choosing a platform. If a platform like MS Teams is chosen, check with your partner if the bandwidth is an issue in their country. And then it's also very important to keep an open mind and to encourage academic staff to be open-minded and to be persistent and resilient in developing and implementing projects. COIL is interesting and exciting. It challenges the mind and promotes new innovative ways of thinking, not only for the students, but for academic staff and coordinators as well. So we just have a few examples of some of the recent successful projects that showcase the creative and interdisciplinary nature of COIL. In journalism, we have implemented a project with one of our partners in Mexico, focusing on health promotion through digital storytelling techniques. The project occurred between broadcast journalism students from DUT and clinical immunology students from the partner institution. Another project with a partner of ours in the USA included DUT statistics students collaborating with epidemiology students from the USA. And then in visual communication, we had a trilateral project between South Africa, Mexico, and USA. In the area of visual design, the project focused on understanding of diversity in the context of design practice. In our School of Education, we have a faculty member working with one of our partners in Brazil on a project focusing on soap and aerosol making. This is taking place between education students in South Africa and chemistry students in Brazil. The project is looking at soap and aerosol making in different socio-economic contexts for community sustainability. In the area of horticulture, we have a program between horticulture students in South Africa and international trade students in Brazil. The comparative project is to understand the challenges and facilitators of the floriculture international trade in South Africa and Brazil. And lastly, we have a partner in the Netherlands that we are working with on a project in food science focusing on nutritional habits, food patterns, and national recommendations. So in driving internationalization and its different initiatives at DUT, we have also had to develop a number of capacity building initiatives. This includes Welcome to COIL Masterclass that we recently presented at the last ISA conference. This is an introductory workshop to COIL as a concept. And this is also offered as the first focus area in the module called PD for COIL, or Professional Development for COIL. The full module includes different focused areas, including getting started with COIL for practical training, intercultural learning, as well as a focus area called Scholarship of COIL. And then in 2020, DUT won the bid to consult for the Association of Commonwealth Universities on a number of international virtual engagement activities. One of the outputs of this consultancy was the Virtual Engagement for International Student Exchange Toolkit, available to all ACU member institutions through the MyACU portal, and we will be taking you through navigating the toolkit over the next couple of slides. So DUT and ACU developed this toolkit with the aim of providing an introductory resource for different approaches to international virtual engagement. It also aims to support the development of international virtual engagement with a pedagogical focus, agreed learning outcomes, appropriate student assessment, and structured evaluation for improvement. In addition, it aims to enable interaction of students in different geophysical locations across the globe while remaining sensitive to culture and context. And it provides practical tips, tools, and resources for implementation, drawing on examples from practice. So after reading the toolkit, you will have a working knowledge of the nature and extent of different types of virtual engagement. You'll be familiar with the differences between extracurricular virtual engagement, such as virtual events and academic exchange. You'll have insight into capacity required for virtual engagement. You'll understand the different technical tools used to support virtual engagement, and you will understand the teaching and learning tools required for virtual engagement. So in developing the toolkit, we considered the macro influences that impact higher education and international virtual engagement, such as globalization, internationalization of higher education, different policies that govern such activities, as well as the drive for social justice and higher education in the world. The toolkit begins with the introductions to international virtual engagement for readers to have a basic understanding of the concept. We then provide the context of virtual engagement in relation to higher education internationalization and in relation to higher education internationalization and the modified delivery thereof during the pandemic. The toolkit then delivers basic and practical tools for virtual engagement. And finally, we include the aspects of cultural diversity and how to navigate these dynamics in international virtual engagement and the online space. So the toolkit provides a glossary of terms for ease of reference and a clear understanding within the context of the specific toolkit. Section 1 of the toolkit covers considerations and advice for institutions embarking on virtual engagement for the first time. The section gives a basic overview of what to consider along with opportunities, benefits, challenges, and shortcomings in relation to international virtual engagement. Section 2 of the toolkit provides advice on the human capacity required for practicing international virtual engagement. This includes roles and responsibilities of administrative and academic staff, as well as suggestions on building your team. The academic staff include academic leaders to lead and curate the international virtual engagement, as well as academic contributors to deliver lectures or talks, facilitate teaching and learning, and assess learning outcomes. The administrative and support staff include the event secretariat to manage participants and logistics, clarify roles and expectations, source additional resources, and provide other forms of administration for the program. The team will also include finance roles, marketing and social media practitioners, as well as technical advisors and instructional designers. This section of the toolkit also includes information on the international virtual engagement life cycle for readers to understand the different steps in running a successful international virtual engagement program, project, or event. Then section 3 of the toolkit covers all of the basic tools required for international virtual engagement. This includes suggestions for different technical tools that work in different contexts. Here we have listed different platforms that facilitate international virtual engagement, such as Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Moodle, Blackboard, Google Hangouts, WhatsApp, and other online social exchange platforms. We have also covered what to consider when deciding to use these platforms. For example, which are data heavy and may be problematic when collaborating with countries with low bandwidth. The section also includes teaching and learning tools required for running a successful virtual engagement for international student exchange. This includes examples of learning outcomes and how to construct these for the virtual learning space. We have also included information on delivery methods, such as synchronous, asynchronous, and semi-synchronous methods, and when to consider using each of these methods. We have also included examples and templates of assessments that work within the virtual space. For example, the developmental model of intercultural sensitivity. And this section also includes examples of partnering activities and gives specific examples of successful partnering events that have resulted in sustainable partnerships for international virtual engagement. In trying to enable academic interaction with the virtual space, we have included section 4 of the toolkit, which covers how to prepare your students for virtual academic engagement. We have also included notes on what organizers should consider for student access and environment, as well as tips for students for the digital environment. And section 5 of the toolkit brings all of this together by covering the aspect of intercultural learning through international virtual engagement and how this can be facilitated. Information on how the digital environment can differ from face-to-face and how the cultural group dynamics can be managed is covered in this section. The toolkit includes many examples that have been referenced in all 5 of the sections. These have been included as appendices in the toolkit. Appendix A to E are the examples of the templates of different teaching and learning tools. Appendix F includes a list of useful resources that have been referenced within the different sections of the toolkit. The next one is an example of the developmental model of intercultural sensitivity that I referenced earlier. And the toolkit also includes a separate section on collaborative online international learning. This section is for readers who specifically want to understand COIL. It is an introductory section to COIL as a pedagogy and as an expression of international virtual engagement. And as mentioned before, the toolkit is available to all ACU member institutions through the My ACU portal. For further information, my email address is also included. If you have any questions, you can email me later on, but I think we will be taking questions in the next section of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, are we still all here? Are we fine?
All good, Malibongwe. All good. Thank you so much, Divinia and Lavern, for that session.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the colleagues from DUT. This was truly a learning experience. You know, the practical part of it, how to actually go about engaging in COIL. And right now, we will take questions. Colleagues from DUT are available to take questions, both Dr. Samuels and Divinia. Can I take some questions, comments? Anything from participants? Please feel free to raise your hand, or there are no questions currently on the chat box, so you can raise your hands and we will note you.
It doesn't look like there are questions, Anisa.
Yeah, it looks like that. Okay, there we have
Okay,
a
there's a
hand.
question
Oh, there's a hand.
from Suzanne and Vanessa.
Hello. Thank you so much for a very interesting presentation. I enjoyed the vision plus just the practical to help me put it all together. I'm just wondering, in terms of how you, perhaps you can speak to it, I'm sure, I don't know if you built all of these partnerships yourself, but in terms of just the mechanics behind, for example, finding that university in Brazil, where those students are working on that project, that there's synergy for you to work off. I would appreciate just your thoughts and elaboration on just the mechanics behind those steps now that I have a little bit more insight into the teaching and learning aspect of it.
Okay, perhaps I'll start with that, Suzanne. We started off through a consortium that was run by the State University of New York. So we started working largely with their colleges, and the New York system is a pretty big system on its own. But then we started working with other members of the consortium, largely because we needed universities that already had COIL embedded into their activities. That's changed now. We now are able to bring in our existing partners who might have not been COIL partners. They might have been partners in research, they might have been partners in student exchange programs, but because we have the expertise, we can now hold their hand through the development stage of the module. Whereas early on, we were restricted in terms of who we could engage with. It was largely existing COIL intensive universities. Now it's a little different. So it depends on your level of COIL expertise. If you feel you can help your partner and walk them through it, then you could use existing partners. But I think it's really important to find that aspect of the curriculum that you want to work on together, because having that is the start. Remember, COIL is not an add-on. It actually is embedded into the curriculum, and it's those 4 to 6 weeks are what you would have normally been teaching outside COIL. So that's very important. The other important part is that transdisciplinarity really is important for COIL and being open to it. And COIL actually does facilitate this really well. So it doesn't necessarily mean looking for a partner who is teaching exactly the same module. We've had nursing students work with food and nutrition students. We've had medical students at one university work with, students in the health sciences who are working on medical legal issues. So you can have law and medicine come together. The combinations are quite extensive, but partner selection is important. And I think attending events such as the International Virtual Exchange Conference actually broadens your network. So I think there are two parts to it: broadening your COIL and International Virtual Exchange network, but then also looking at existing partners and looking at how they can be brought on board with a COIL module. I hope I've addressed your question, Suzanne.
Thank you so much. Very insightful.
Suzanne, this is Anisa as well. I've just popped into the chat box as well. One of our Universitas 21 partners, University of Monterrey, has a very, very advanced COIL program called the Global Classroom Project. And they have a full list of all their modules and programs that they have on offer, which are available for COILing with. So you can go to their website, have a look, and see if you can find a partner there, and we can take it forward then through the Universitas 21 partnership if you are interested.
Thank you. I actually have run into colleagues from the University of Montreal, and they're always doing such interesting teaching and learning things. So that's an exciting prospect.
Yes, they're an excellent university to work with. We've been working with them for a number of years on COIL projects, and they would be a really good first partner to have because of the experience. So if you're doing COIL for the first time, having that experienced partner from your existing networks give you a double advantage. I think there was Vanessa Hughes who had a question as well.
Yes, yeah, that was the
Sorry,
second question.
Vanessa. No, not Hughes. Got that wrong.
Vanessa Damons, good
Yes.
afternoon. I think this was really very, very interesting. I'm working in academic development, so we work with student support and so on. And my mind is like, we have two modules which deals with skills, study skills for our undergraduate extended degree students, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, how can we include COIL into our curriculum? So it sounds very interesting. So my question to you is, how do one access this toolkit, or do we first need to engage with Anisa and her team? But how can we access this toolkit so that we can learn more? Or will Anisa take us through this, or is it open for everyone? Do we have a partnership with DUT so that one can really look at this and see how we can engage with this within our module, if it is possible, because it's a skills development course. But thank you.
Yes, Divinia, do you want to go on that one?
Sure. So the toolkit specifically, it's available to all ACU members, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure UJ is an ACU member, and it's available through the My ACU portal. So what I've done is downloaded from there the final version and shared it with our academic staff who are participating in COIL activities, even the training activities. So perhaps the international office can download it at UJ and share it with all academic staff.
I have the toolkit, and I will also ask Angie to send it around to whoever participated in the session. Thanks.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? We're happy to answer them.
I think there are no questions.
If I could also perhaps respond a little further to Vanessa's, I think that type of initiative that she's proposing is a really good one, but the choice of partner becomes really important. And remember, COIL training, it's an ongoing activity. It's not an event that happens. We have a series of modules that we deliver to our staff on an ongoing basis. So, you might start with the initial module, welcome to COIL. And, with time you develop, I think about my own trajectory with COIL over the last 8 or 9 years. And, with time, you also explore the creative space. So you're not just a consumer of what is on offer, but you actually contribute to the evolution of the COIL movement, because it really is this large movement. And during the COVID period, we've had lots of new people put effort into COIL, and it's constantly changing, but so are the opportunities. But if you're looking at developing a module around that, we'd be happy to look at a 3-way partnership with DUT, UJ, and a third partner in delivering that. It's a fairly complex type of COIL module that you're proposing, but it's certainly doable if the fundamentals of the design are in place.
Thank you so much, Dr. Summers. Anisa, do you want to come in? I think in terms of our program, we are just 3 minutes after.
Yeah, I think that we will let Angie close and thank all of the speakers. Angie, I think over to you, but I also have to leave. I'm so sorry. I have a partner meeting that I have to get into. Otherwise, I'll be in trouble with one of the academics who's waiting for me to join. But thank you from my side, Lavern and Divinia. We really, really appreciate such a collegial way of working with us and your input today. And I'm sure from this, you're going to hear from me again, asking for your help and assistance, maybe for Coil 2.0, the next opportunity, or to find out more about the professional development courses that you're now offering through DUT. And I'm sure there'll be lots of interest from our academics to take those up. But thank you so much from my side. Thanks. And to Program Director.
Thank you, Anisa. I would like to thank colleagues for availing themselves for this masterclass. It was sure interesting, and thank you so much to Dr. Samuels and colleague for coming and honoring our invite to share with us experiences regarding COIL that DUT has been able to. Some experiences that DUT has been able to carry out, and I'm sure our academics have learned a lot from your deliberations, and we look forward to speaking more about this topic with you. And yeah, thank you, and we look forward to more engagement. And to UJ academics, you are welcome to liaise directly with Anisa, Malibongwe, the whole team, if you have any collaborations or partnerships that you are interested in, or you need advice in terms of taking up these opportunities. With that, I will say thank you, and thank you, Malibongwe, for chairing the session. We will play out with some music, I guess, Megan?
Yes, just give me a second.
Yep. Enjoy the music.